Hello, in this video I will be teaching you how to encrypt and decrypt using the Playfair cipher. So our first matter of discussion is over here. I have this 5x5 grid and this acts as sort of my key. You can see I have the word pencil written out up here. That makes my keyword. Your keyword will have to be a word that you've shared with you and your partner. That has to be determined ahead of time. You can reuse this key. The only rule to what key you can have is there can only be one of each letter, so one P, one E, and one N, etc. If that makes sense. So then after our keyword, we have letters A, B, but then you can see that I skipped C. So this is in alphabetical order, but some of the letters are skipped. So C is already up here, and they do not need to be repeated. So you can kind of continue. You can see I also skipped I and every other letter that's in my keyword. So in addition to that, there are only 25 spots in here, and we have 26 letters of the alphabet, so one of the letters cannot make it into this box. Usually that is J, and that is what I've used for this, but the letter you have taken out must be also determined by your partner and you. So you can replace, if you're encrypting or decrypting a word with J in it, then you can replace it with I, and it will be very easy to understand. Okay, so moving on to over here, you can see I have GK, LQ, and HT. So when encrypting using the Playfair cipher, you encrypt in increments of 2 letters. So you can see we go and find G and K in our grid. So G is right here and K is right here. So G and K are in the same column. They can either be in the same column, the same row, or for other ones, there's another way to do it. But for the same row, you move the letters 1 to the right. So G is going to become H and K is going to become M. So we can write G is H and K is M. Moving on to LQ, they are in the same column. So if they're in the same column, you're going to shift down one. So L is going to become G and Q is going to become V. H and T are not in the same column or row, but you can see if we make like a little imaginary rectangle here, H and T can become 2 opposite corners. They're diagonal to each other. So it goes from H to M to T to R, and that is our rectangle. How we're going to do this is you're going to take the opposite horizontal wise of the letter you're encrypting. So H is going to become M and T is going to become R. So now we're going to practice with a word. You can see I've split it into increments of 2 because that is how we're going to encrypt. DR, we're going to find these in here. D is right here and R is right here. So this forms a rectangle. And D is going to become A because that is the opposite horizontal wise, and R is going to become T, just like we did with the HT. Next, we find E and A, and they are actually in the same column. So remembering what we did with LQ, E is going to become A, and A is going to become H. Okay, and then we're going to find M and X, and that forms a rectangle. So just like we did with the HT and DR, we're going to find the opposite horizontal wise. So M is going to become K, and X is going to become Y. And so the word I'm encrypting here is dream, but you also have this extra X at the end. That is because we have to have an even number of letters. So X is just used as a filler so I can determine how to encrypt M. So now let's say you have encrypted that and send it to your partner, and your partner sends this back. Now you have to understand how to decrypt it. Of course, we're going to decrypt in pairs of 2 again. So we'll go over here and we'll find K and G. So K and G are in the same row. So thinking back to how we did with G and K, it's actually the opposite. We're going to try to undo the effects. So if you recall, when they're in the same column or row for encrypting, row, not column, sorry, we move to the right when we're encrypting. So now we want to do the opposite of that and move to the left. So G has nothing to the left, so we're going to come back around to O. So G is going to become O. Sorry, I did this backwards. And K is going to move to the left, so K is going to become H. Now we're moving on to E and N. So E and N are also in the same row. And so we're going to move one to the left again. So E is going to become P, and N is going to become E. So you can see they have sent hope. So now that we have decrypted that, I'm going to show you a few more examples for if they're in different positions than just in the same row, because that's not a very good example. So we'll come over to G and K, and I'll change my color. So we're going to come back and find G and K. Well, we actually already did the columns. So in row, I'm sorry, I keep speaking wrong. We've already done a row, so I think you understand since both of those were that. L and Q are in the same column. So like we did before, we went down 1, so instead we're going to go up 1. So L is going to become P and Q is going to become G. So now we have H and T. So before we had, let's go back to encrypting. We had MR when we encrypted HT. So let's say we were trying to decrypt MR actually. We're just going to do the opposite. So it just comes back to HT. This doesn't really change. It's still the horizontal opposite because you're already doing the opposite, if that makes any sense. There's no other way to do that. So it's actually going to be the same as encrypting since it's just flipped sides. So HT, if you're decrypting that, we can come over to MR. So that's the same for both encrypting and decrypting. So there you have it. You have successfully learned how to encrypt and decrypt using the Playfair cipher.